Hello, everybody. Welcome to this all-new episode, live episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. We have an action-packed show for you here tonight. I'm your host, BJ Kubaroulis, alongside of Paul Frummel and John Marcario, both of the Connection newspapers, and Dave Buchenfeld from the Times Community newspapers. He's a sports editor there. Well, this show is all about you, folks. We're going to answer your questions here on this all-new live episode of the Fairfax Sports Report here Wednesday, October 3rd, 10 p.m. We are live, guys, so we're going to be taking your calls in just a minute. But before we get to that, we want to thank the folks that make this show possible. And, of course, we're talking about our underwriters. Special thanks to our teammates, CCI Screen Printing, for all your screen printing needs at 703-978-0257. Hey, we're on the web. It's an all-new web page. Wonderful content, interviews with Monica Moore, our volleyball analyst, who's going to be joining us here at the break. On FairfaxSportsNetwork.com, FSN, we're on the web. And guys, you can read our stories on the website, but why go to the website? Just call us here tonight, and you get a chance to talk to us, ask us all the questions, ask these guys what games they were at this week. The number right below here, 703-573-LIVE. And for those of you who don't know how to dial a phone, it's pretty simple, 703-573-LIVE. We're going to be taking your calls in just a minute, and we want your comments and questions. And, of course, you can just leave those on the website. We got a new addition to our website, guys, where you can go on our website and click our stories, read them, and leave your comments. And each week on this show, we're going to read off the best comment of the week. This week's comment of the week, guys, in this all-new groundbreaking segment is from Joel Trotter. Joel Trotter talking about Randy Lytle. Randy Lytle was let go from the Thomas Jefferson baseball program after some success, and he was just recently picked up by Jeb Stewart. Well, Joel Trotter's sons, they played for Coach Lytle, and he says, on our website at FairfaxSportsNetwork.com, TJ's loss is Stewart's gain. Coach Lytle brings unequaled passion and dedication to the job. Thanks to his coaching of my sons, people look at them. They look at them play, and they think their dad knows something about baseball when my boys have Coach Lytle to thank for developing their skills. With Coach Lytle at Stewart, you can expect a very exciting future for that program. And guys, as we all know, that program really could use some excitement and some rejuvenation, if you will. They're 18-108. That is their record since 2001, 18-108. So obviously, Coach Lytle's got his work cut out for him. I got a chance to talk to him a little bit this week, and he says, I know it's a hell of a challenge, and I've got my work cut out for me, but I'm going to go in there and give it all I got. He's bringing his two assistants along with him. If you want to add your comments to what Joel said, go to the website and check out the story on FairfaxSportsNetwork.com, and what we do every week here on this show, guys, and it's what pays the bills, of course. It's football. Let's jump into the Northern Region football scene, and we'll start with the exciting Patriot District, which over the last 2 years has really started off as a hot race. West Potomac right up at the top. Josh Wells headed into a game with number 2 right there, West Springfield at 4-1. Those schools we'll get a chance to talk about a little bit later in the show played the highest scoring game in the history of the Virginia High School League, and they'll do so again probably this week. Lake Braddock at 2-0 and 4-1, all knotted up there with the Spartans of West Springfield. And T.C. Williams, and as we talk about T.C. Williams, we want to dedicate this show to Michael Lee Hobson, age 51, played for the 1971 T.C. Williams team, which was featured on Remember the Titans. He retired and worked at T.C. Williams, and he'd be glad to know that his Titans right up there in the middle of the pack, edging their way up, right underneath Lake Braddock at 1-1 and 2-3. Annandale 1-1, 2-3, and the Stallions of South County at 2-3 overall. Hayfield and Lee, both down there in the district, over on the season, and between both of them, they've combined for 1 win on the season, guys. And this week, the Fairfax Sports Network got an opportunity to cover the West Springfield-Annandale game. And John, a quarterback from West Springfield, is really what that team has been based on for so many years. Peter Lalick, of course, at UVA now. Bryn Renner steps in and fills those shoes quite well and gets into a shootout with Annandale. Bryn Renner is obviously a quarterback that's going to be good, only a junior now, and you've gotten a chance to talk to him and his dad, who's the coach of the Spartans. They were on this show as well. You got a chance to talk with Bryn a little bit. Tell us a little bit about his thoughts from this week.
Bryn said the Annandale win was extremely important for them because just it got over that hump. Annandale was the back-to-back defending Patriot District champion, so that's just one of the hurdles that they have to get over. West Potomac, the team they played this week, is their second hurdle. He said he enjoys playing the shootout games. Bryn's put up excellent numbers this season so far, 900-plus yards passing, 200-plus yards rushing, a superb 11 touchdown to 3 interception ratio, just outstanding. Head coach Bill Renner said that he's impressed with his team's focus and attitude each and every week. They don't get too excited for a given week. They don't get too down for a given week. It's just constantly, every week, every team, same old, same old.
All right, it's the same old with us here. We're live here on the Fairfax Sports Report, and we're going to be taking your calls at any moment. You hear us say something you want to comment on, just pick up the phone and give us a call at 703-573-LIVE. Give us a call. We'll answer your questions. Dave, Annandale, Nathan Cartagena was the guy at Annandale for over the last 3 years, a running, shooting kind of double threat. He's gone now, graduated, and Annandale still, under Dick Adams, two-time returning Patriot District champion, they were able to put up 41 points on a Spartan defense that maybe Coach Renner thought was at a point where it was better, just not there yet.
Yeah, well, it seems like every time these two teams get together, it's a shootout. I was at the game last year when you mentioned Lawlick and Cartagena were going head-to-head. Annandale ended up winning that game 39-28. It was just who could score the most, and every time they got the ball, they were putting in the end zone. And Spartans' defense, obviously, last year struggled a little bit. They're hoping that they're not kind of going back into that same kind of way, giving up 41 points last week. So, but yeah, it's a shootout every time they meet.
Don't be fooled by that 41-point number, by the way. The defense came up big with 2 key turnovers in the fourth quarter. When they had to make plays, they made plays.
Let's watch them make some of those plays. As we said, the Fairfax Sports Network was there covering the game. West Springfield 54, Annandale 41. And right out of the gates here, you see the quarterback for the Adams, such an important position to play there. Rolling out, and then again handing off to the tailback, running it all the way up the middle. No one's going to catch him, and it was back and forth like this all night. There's Renner handing off to Brandon Bailey, who went for over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, and look at him. It just looks like he's walking, but he's much faster than everybody else, guys. There's Bryn Renner, John, handing off again, but this is a team that really likes to get out and get into shootouts.
Renner and company, they do enjoy getting into shootouts. Here you see the poor tackling by the Spartans just results in big plays by Annandale, just going right up the middle. There you see another 20-plus yard play. You can count 4 or 5 missed tackles in there. Annandale looking to finish off the drive here, but a big sack by West Springfield right there. They're looking to go to the end zone, and he's going to complete this one for a touchdown. It was a high-scoring affair in that one.
And Bryn Renner can complete some passes as well, Dave. Look at the long bomb on the turf field. No, that one knocked away. A great stop. But Renner's going to get another shot here. Just lobs that one in the back of the end zone. And again, the Adams come up big. And as you see, they're breaking through. It's the quarterback, such an important position. Obviously, not only in football, but to that Dick Adams-based offense, quarterback is really where it all starts.
It really does. Obviously, we talked about Cartagena, touched the ball every play and was the main guy last year, and Kason Kynes has really filled that role this year for them.
As you see now, Renner weighing his options and darts that one across the middle. A beautiful completion, Paul, right up the middle.
Yeah, he threw that right on rope. But you can see on this turf field that the receivers and the running backs get good cuts. Another great throw by Renner right where it needed to be.
And, John, you talked about this defense making stops. That was not one of them as Kynes finds the end zone. And look at him rolling out here. This kid had quite a game as well. In this game, guys, as that one's, John, one of the picks you talked about, 3 running backs went for over 100 yards. 1 running back went for over 200 yards. And both quarterbacks threw for over 150 yards in a 54-41 shootout. And Brandon Bailey, there he is, the only guy that went over 200 yards of offense. And this guy just hits the sideline, guys. And it doesn't look like he's hitting it hard, but it looks like he's walking, but he's still that much faster than everybody else, Dave.
Yeah, he does. And look at him go again.
Brandon Bailey, he leads the Northern Region in rushing this year with 699 yards on the season. There's the speed right there. He's got that second gear where he can break the tackles, but then there's the second one.
You can see here, obviously, good stop to save a first down for the West Springfield. Another one, Annandale. It's just a high-scoring game. You know, almost 100 points scored between the two teams. Onside kick. Wow. Special teams touchdown. Obviously, you can see they were scoring on in every facet of the game.
So a little bit of everything in this shootout between West Springfield and Annandale as we wrap it up there with the last touchdown of the game. And, guys, with that being said, let's go to the numbers. I mentioned some of the numbers. Let's go right into the graphic about the numbers. Some of these numbers are pretty hard to believe. 41 first downs, There was only one punt in the game, as you see there, John, and 100-yard rushers. How many, John?
There's 200-yard rushers. There was one 200-yard rusher in Brandon Bailey, two different 150-yard passers in Renner and Annandale's quarterback, and four 50-yard receivers. The ball was flying all over the place out there in West Springfield.
All right, and West Springfield and West Potomac will be playing a big game. Last year's game was the highest scoring game in the history of the Virginia High School League. We're going to go to Wynn Ellington in just a minute. Wynn, obviously, calling the action for West Springfield Annandale game. He was there calling the action with Greg Wyszynski, and he got a chance to catch up with some of the players after the game. Wynn's going to be joining us in just a minute to give us his expertise. And, of course, John, you got a chance to talk with Coach Renner. They're going into that big West Potomac game. That's a game where you got to wonder if that West Springfield defense is going to be able to make the big stops like they did in this game.
It's going to be a tell-all game. They gave up 41 to Annandale. They're not going to be able to give up 41 points to West Potomac and expect to win it. Josh Wells, West Potomac's star running back, has a hamstring injury, didn't play against Hayfield, probably will play against West Springfield, but it's still unknown until game time. That could be a key factor.
All right, and joining us now, as promised, is Wynn Ellington. He was on the call with Greg Wyszynski on the Fairfax Sports Network's presentation of Annandale and West Springfield. Wynn, are you with us?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Wynn. So you got a chance to call the game alongside of Greg, and it was a shootout, obviously. Who, though, impressed you the most out of everyone on the field? Obviously, Bryn Renner was great for West Springfield and Brandon Bailey, but who maybe didn't get the headlines that really stuck out?
Probably the West Springfield offensive line, and it was hard to judge individual play, but they just did an excellent job overall of both giving Renner time to throw the ball and then opening up the holes for Brandon Bailey. And as soon as Bailey got a little bit of space, he was just able to use his speed and get past the Annandale defenders. But the Spartans have one really big-looking kid on that offensive line. He played left tackle, and his name is Adam Talat. He's about 6'6" and 275 pounds, according to the roster. He's a senior, but he appeared to be the leader of that offensive line. But the West Springfield offensive line certainly did an excellent job, along with many other Spartans.
Wynn, how important is Tyler Bittencourt, the West Springfield kicker? I mean, on kickoffs, he routinely kicks the ball out of the end zone. On field goals, he's fairly efficient, 7 for 7 this year with a long of 50-yarders. Just what kind of difference does he make in a game, especially close ones?
Well, I think the kicking game really was in West Springfield's advantage. He did kick a lot of his balls out into the end zone, forcing Annandale to start from the 20. And, one advantage West Springfield had in the game was they had the short field often on many of their scoring drives. A lot of their drives, they were up near the 45, 50-yard line and then the 45-yard line of Annandale. So the short field made a big difference for West Springfield, whereas Annandale often had to was forced to travel the whole 80 yards.
Now, when we were just watching some highlights, didn't really look to be a whole lot of defense going on out there. Was Coach Renner worried at all that his defense was kind of regressing to what they were last season, giving up the 41 points in this game?
Well, before the game, Coach Renner said that, there wasn't any – the defense didn't make any major adjustments as far as from their opener against Stonebridge when they gave up 56 points. He just talked about how they're more experienced this year. But, in judging from their play, the first half they really did have a lot of problems, especially tackling Jordan Anderson. Anderson seemed to just easily break the tackles of the West Springfield defenders. But they did a nice job in the third quarter. They held Annandale scoreless in the third quarter, and there was a strong defensive effort by several of the Spartan defenders. Notably John Lockwood, who was a junior defensive end, he did a nice job of getting past his blocks, and then the linebacking core did a nice job as well. There's a player named Malik Dow, and another player's name is Augie Subugayan. I'm hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. But they both did a very nice job of putting pressure on Kason Kynes, the Annandale quarterback, in the second half. And I was impressed with Kynes too. He did a good job. Well, and then there's also a young sophomore linebacker named Joey DeSantis for West Springfield, and he seemed to be a pretty good run stuffer. But yeah, in the first half when they gave up 28 points, the main problem there was they couldn't stop Jordan Anderson, And also, Kynes did an excellent job of selling the fake. He would sell that fake to Anderson, and then he would kind of scoot through the tackle hole and pick up 5 or 6 yards frequently.
Well, if you want to read more about Win Ellington's observations from the game, you can go to fairfaxsportsnetwork.com, where he's written a column, and he'll do that every week for the Fairfax Sports Network. It's called the Friday Night Recap, and who better to recap a Friday night than Win Ellington, because he's at the game calling the action for the Fairfax Sports Network. Win, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch up with you soon.
I look forward to it.
Okay, Win. All right, guys. So Jordan Anderson, obviously the story for Annandale, and Kason Kynes as well. Renner and the boys, Brandon Bailey, really getting it done for West Springfield. Let's move on, though, to what West Springfield's got ahead of them this week. Dave, West Springfield is going back into a West Potomac matchup in 2006, which was the highest scoring game in the history of the Virginia High School League.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I wasn't at that game, but I believe it was one of the first games played on the turf field over there at West Springfield. As you can see on the graphic there, the final score in 4 overtimes, 81-74, which is just absurd. The highest scoring game in the history of the VHSL. Now you look at what they're doing this year. Spartans are sitting there at 4-1, while West Potomac's at 5-0. Both 2-0 in the Patriot District. We were talking earlier before the show. This could decide the Patriot District Championship.
All right, let's go to the tail of the tape and show the folks at home, Dave, who's who in this matchup. We've heard a lot about West Springfield and West Potomac, and right there, you've got it by the numbers.
The Spartans have forced 37 points to 34.4 for the Wolverines, and they've only allowed 26.2 per game to 11.6 for the Wolverines, so it should be a good matchup.
Those actually on an average, and as well, look at their Patriot District records. Everything the same except for that one pesky loss for the Spartans, who dropped an early season shootout to Stonebridge, and I don't think anyone was surprised there. I think the surprise came in week 2 when they started knocking off some of the big dogs. They've now run through Edison and Robinson, and this will obviously be their next big test against West Potomac, and maybe their biggest test for the rest of the season. When we come back, we're going to take your calls here on the Fairfax Sports Report. You can call us at 703-573-LIVE, L-I-V-E, here on Wednesday, October 3rd, on this all-new live episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. Monica Moore is going to join us for some volleyball analysis, so come on back right after this break. Welcome back to this all-new live episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, BJ Kubaroulis, alongside of FSN volleyball analyst Monica Moore, who joins us every week to give us her rankings, which can also be found on the website at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Monica, crazy week for volleyball in the Northern region.
Absolutely. There have been a couple of shakeups this week in the rankings as Westfield has once again regained the top spot. Westfield actually started out the week a little shakily. They had 2 losses to non-region opponents. They lost to Patrick Henry Roanoke and also to Cave Spring. And for those who don't know, Cave Spring is actually quite the Virginia volleyball powerhouse. They have won 4 of the last 5 AA state championships in Virginia. But Westfield certainly rebounded Monday night with a 3-1 win against Langley. And Westfield was actually the underdog in that match. They lost 5 of 6 starters from last year's Northern Region Championship team. However, they really came out strong and really silenced any potential detractors that they had. Westfield was led by junior outside hitter Sammy Spees. She had the match-high 20 kills as well as 11 digs, and anytime that Westfield needed a boost, Spees was there. Westfield actually won the first game off an ace by Spees, and they won the second game off of a kill by her. And she wasn't alone. Senior Kelsey Maloney also came up pretty big. And I talked a couple of weeks ago about the fact that Kelsey was out all last year due to an illness, but she had 17 kills and 12 digs, and she's being recruited by several Division I schools, including Wisconsin. So we'll keep you posted on her future plans. Now, following the loss to Westfield, Langley has moved to number 2 in the rankings. And Langley fans did have at least one thing to be happy about Monday night, and that was the return of junior Logan Sebastian to the lineup. Logan led the team with 13 kills, and she was out due to a foot injury, but showed no signs of it Monday night. And also Megan Shiflett, who we had on the program last week, was consistent and steady as usual with 33 assists during that match. Third on the list is Centerville. Centerville actually traveled down to Virginia Beach this weekend to play Cox High School, another non-region matchup, and they won that decisively 3-0. And they have a big match tomorrow night against Jim Boer's Westfield team, so it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top. There's no rest for the Westfield team. And moving up on the list is Herndon. Herndon actually defeated Lake Braddock last night, so they are now 11-2 and have another game tomorrow night against Annandale. And dropping on the list to number 5 is Chantilly. They suffered their first loss of the week Monday night to Stonebridge and are looking to rebound tonight, no doubt, against Yorktown. So that's it for the volleyball report this week. But next week, we will certainly have highlights from the Westfield-Centerville matchup tomorrow night. Thanks, BJ.
And Monica does such a great job every week. You can go to the website, give Monica your comments, click on her stories, click on her rankings, and let her know who should be ranked where. Give her a little advice.
I certainly need it.
Rock her rankings a little bit. We all get our rankings rocked. So let the new guy here, the new gal here, treat her nicely, though, because I'll come after you. But some solid rankings again, and sets up for some great games of volleyball in the Northern region. And Monica's had a chance to catch up with some of the great volleyball players in the Northern region. We recently got done doing a question and answer session with Edison's Terry Dua, and that's on the website as well. So if you want to read Monica's question and answer sessions with the volleyball greats of the Northern region, go to the website at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Monica, thanks so much.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're taking your calls live here Wednesday, October 3rd, about Northern Region football. Pick up the phone, 703-573-LIVE. Give us a buzz. We'll take your calls. We're coming right back. Welcome back to this all-new live episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. Before we get on to this wonderful thing we call the Concord District of Football, let's take our first call here tonight. From our first caller. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Caller, what's your name and where are you from?
Sophia, Fairfax, Virginia.
Sophia, a wonderful Greek name, as I am Greek as well. Talk to me, Sophia, and tell me what's on your mind. What do you want to know about the Northern Region football landscape?
I was just curious who y'all's pick is for the Madison Langley game this Friday.
Well, that's a great question, Sophia. And when we get into our Liberty District breakdown and on the website, you can see pictures of Tucker Barstow and the boys from Madison. And, of course, from Langley, you've got David Helmer, a great Northern Region wrestler who's getting a couple of carries with Derek Eklund. Guys, let's jump into that game, though. We'll jump into that game a little bit earlier than expected. Sophia, thanks for the call. Guys, Madison-Langley, a great matchup. Dave, who do you got picked in that one?
Until they lose, how can you pick against Madison? I mean, you mentioned Barstow. They have that power running game that they always have. So many weapons to choose from, and they're just rolling right now. So
Undefeated, you can't go against that at all, especially after Langley kind of gave away that game last week against Oakland.
Madison is playing how Langley should be playing. Power running with a 150-pound Tucker Barstow who cannot be taken down. I like this Madison team. I like this team so much, they may win the Liberty District.
And Madison is off to its best start in Coach Gordon Leib's 10 years, so it's a clean sweep for Madison here. Sorry, Sophia, if you're a Langley fan. You said Fairfax, so you left it a little broad for us there, but I'm not sure who you're rooting for. But don't count out the Saxons just yet. They've got a great line, Dave, and the big boys over at Langley, led by Will Wilson, Paul's favorite lineman. You never know what could happen.
well, here's a question for you. Put Will Wilson on Madison. How many more yards would Barstow have this year?
Well, they'd be the best team ever created. No, seriously though, Langley does have those big, strong linemen, which I like so much with Garrett Moore, Will Wilson. The thing is though, Madison right now I just think is a better team. They're running that power running game, and it's working for them. Langley's trying a little bit to mix the pass in. Didn't work very well last week, but definitely look for Madison to take this game.
All right, we're going to answer your calls all night right here underneath me, 703-573-LIVE. Pick up the phone, call us. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about because this show is all about you folks at home, the Northern Regions fans. All right, let's jump into the Concord District, guys, and show the folks at home who sits where. Paul Frummel at the top of what we like to call the Concord District.
All right, you got Westfield, obviously. I mean, it's all about the Bulldogs. They sit there at number 1, undefeated, 2-0 in the district. 5-0 overall. Centerville, a surprise for most people, not a surprise to me. I was big on the Wildcats from the beginning. They are 2-0 in the district, 4-1 overall. That one loss coming to West Potomac early in the season, a close loss. Chantilly's right there. Obviously, that one loss that they do have was to Westfield. They are 1-1 in the district, 4-1 overall. Then you got some offers. Robinson, Oakton, Herndon, and Fairfax have not won a district game. Obviously, the district schedule has just started. Robinson's 3-2. Oakton is 3-2. Oakton coming back strong against Langley. Herndon 1-4, and Fairfax 1-4.
All right, and Sophia buzzed us and wanted to know about that Madison-Langley game, which will be one of the games of the week this week. So you folks at home will get a chance to see that game. You'll also get a chance to see Chantilly take on Oakton in the Concord District. 2 game of the weeks this week for the Fairfax Sports Network. You can go to the website for the game breakdown, photos and fun, all at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. But guys, when you think about this Chantilly team coming off a win over Herndon, but coming off a big loss against Westfield, that was a great game. A lot of you guys got a chance to get out to that game. So did the Fairfax Sports Network. Let's show the folks at home a couple of highlights from that fun game where Mikey Glennon and the boys really took it to, of course, the Chantilly Chargers.
Here you see Austin Decker, and he's so dangerous on the ground. This is the first play from scrimmage for Chantilly, and it could have been a huge blow to Westfield. Decker scoring immediately for the Chargers.
You got to love the stiff arm as well, but here's Mikey Glennon, and he's going to NC State, Dave, for a reason. You see that gun right out to the flat.
Yep, but here's another big play given up by the Westfield defense. Torian Pace, I believe this was a 64-yard touchdown pass.
It was
touchdown run.
2 big plays right away for Chantilly. They were stopped the rest. Here you see Brian Kennedy.
Ooh.
You see that cut. You see that big play capability by Brian Kennedy. A huge factor for the Bulldogs. And then you see another huge factor, Mikey Glennon just throwing it in there to Johnny Pickett. Obviously, just a great arm from Mikey Glennon. Another great throw. He was tearing apart the Chantilly defense. A fumble, though, here. Chantilly recovers. Another could have been a backbreaker for the Bulldogs. But now you just see the power. But, here
Wow.
we go with the
Wow.
with the hook and ladder, which caught me off guard now and caught me off guard during the game. Trick plays for the Bulldogs. Brian Kennedy hitting the corner, getting in for a touchdown.
Is there anything that offense can't do? I mean, everything they did looked better than what the Redskins did recently. And then over the top, a beautiful drop-in pass there from Austin Decker, who, of course, got some time last year during the playoffs. But again, it's Brian Kennedy. Look at the cutback ability. This kid is something special. 3 different cutback moves on 3 different defenders, and he did get the outside, just couldn't get the corner, Dave.
Here's the QB sneak.
Look at 6'6" Mikey Glennon rumbling, and that was the designed play, folks. That was not a scramble. That was designed from Coach Verbanek.
And Decker on a last-ditch effort, but he's nearly picked off. Guys, a great game played between Chantilly and Westfield 2 weeks ago, and we show you that because we want to show you Chantilly's ability as they go in to the Fairfax Sports Network's Game of the Week against Oakton. Let's tell you more about the Chantilly Chargers. Dave, you see the Chantilly Chargers right there at 4-1.
They are at 4-1. The loss to Westfield, but can't really take too much away from that because Westfield is clearly the best team in the region right now. They are scoring an average of 35.4 points per game, which is ranked 7th in the region, and they're only allowing 11 points per game, which is the 3rd best defense in the region right now.
All right, guys. And Chantilly is also on a short list, John, of the top 8 teams in the northern region that have been able to retain a scoring average over 35 points. Let's go to the graphic, show the folks at home. Chantilly's ranked 6th, okay, after West Springfield and Woodson. They're tied at 4th. Oh, you see the scoring averages per game and how many total. Surprisingly, Edison, maybe not so surprisingly, because they don't play as tough a schedule as the rest of the people on this list. But you see how many points have been forced by each of these teams, and that's total points in the left-hand column. And in the right-hand column, it's per game average. Chantilly just above Madison, and there, a little shout-out to Sophia and the Madison gang. Madison's on that list as well, right down there at 7th, 35.2 points a game. All right, now, of these teams, who is allowing the fewest points? So you see Chantilly ranked at 6th, but they're also ranked at 3rd, Paul Frummelt. They're only allowing 11 points a game. So of that list, that's pretty good company to be in, scoring the 6th most amount of points in the region and allowing just the 3rd amount.
Well, one thing that's interesting is we talk about that Westfield offense, but look at the Westfield defense, allowing 7.2 points per game. In Madison, we're talking about their offense all the time. Look what their defense is doing, allowing just 10 points per game. Talked about Chantilly right there. Here's a surprise at Woodson, a strong team that not many people talk about, allowing only 11.8 points per game. Stonebridge, they're number 2 there in offense. They're allowing 16.8 points per game. You have Edison and West Springfield. So you're seeing these top teams, really, their defenses are also showing up.
I want to remind the folks at home that we are live here Wednesday, October 3rd in studio. I'm BJ Kubarulis alongside of Paul Frummel and John Marcario, these two guys of the Connection newspapers, and the big man on campus, Dave Bushenfeld, taking time away from that Red Sox game to join us here in studio live. Give us a call, 703-573-LIVE. We're going to take your calls, talk about any one of your Northern Region football teams. Guys, let's continue, though, with this Chantilly breakdown, John. Let's look at Austin Decker's numbers and what he might be able to do against the Oakton Cougars, looking at some of his stats from this season.
Austin Decker, very balanced so far. He is 20 of 45 passing for 293 yards, the 3 touchdowns. Very key, 0 interceptions. Dual threat rushing, 35 carries for 242 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's 5 total touchdowns, no turnovers. I mean, you got to love that from your quarterback for turnover to scoring ratio.
All right, let's jump right into Torian Pace's numbers, Paul Frummel. We got a chance to see Torian's ability on some of the highlights from the Westfield game, but he's putting up some respectable numbers.
Well, he's really blossomed this year. 8 touchdowns already, 493 yards rushing on 43 carries. Receiving, he's catching the ball too, averaging 20 yards per catch.
That's pretty silly right there when you think about that average per
Yeah.
catch. And the kid's a game breaker as well. All right, we're game breakers. We can break it open sometimes, and we're going to break for your calls at any time when you give us a call here in studio Wednesday, October 3rd, 703-573-LIVE. Pick up the phone, give us a call. And every week here on the Fairfax Sports Network's Fairfax Sports Report, we're going to feature the comment of the week. If you go to our website, fairfaxsportsnetwork.com, click on our stories, leave a comment. Today's comment was about Coach Randy Lytle, and that was left by one of the dads of his former players. Lytle, of course, let go from Jefferson, but was just picked up by Jeb Stewart. Let's jump into that fun Liberty District, and we're going to answer some more of Sophia's questions here, as she wanted to know about that great Madison-Langley matchup. Dave Bushenfeld, who's on top in the Liberty District?
Well, we've been talking about them all night. Madison at 5-0 and 2-0 in the district, followed closely by Stonebridge and Woodson, who are both 4-1 overall and do not have a loss in the district yet. Langley 2-0 in the district, 3-2 overall, and then the rest of the teams are winless in the district play. Marshall, South Lakes, McLean, and Jefferson all without a win yet.
All right, when you think of the Liberty District, guys, and you think about the Madison Warhawks, they were on that short list of teams, the top 7 that have been able to really get their scoring done this year. Dave, that's a superpower run offense. Paul, and you got a chance to cover the Warhawks. What's changed for the Warhawks this year?
I'm not sure actually what has changed, but what I know is they're just playing with a purpose. They are playing, and you know what they're seeing for that purpose? The team right below them, Stonebridge. They lost four times to Stonebridge in the last 2 years. They are really waiting for those Bulldogs.
All right, and waiting for us on the line is a new caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you from?
This is Danny asking who's the best receiver in the Northern region?
Guys, that's a good question. Danny, thanks for the call. Best receiver in the Northern region. Danny's putting you on the hot seat, Dave. Run with it.
It might just because he has the best quarterback in the region, but I think Johnny Pickett for Westfield has been the best one so far. He even threw a touchdown pass in the game against Robinson last week, so that's my pick.
I'm going to give you 2 answers. One of them, Andy Stallings, West Springfield. He's putting up the best numbers, 30 receptions, 300-plus yards. But the best receiver is currently playing quarterback. He plays for Edison, Ben Barber. He had a 70-yard touchdown reception last week. He's money when he touches the ball on the receiving end.
That's a great pull, John. I like that. Paul, what about you?
Well, the first one that came to mind before Dave said it, it's Johnny Pickett. You know, David Crutchko is definitely the big name for those Bulldogs, but Pickett really stepped up last year when Crutchko was out, and now he has become the go-to receiver. He's the best receiver in the Northern region.
All right, believe it or not, I'm going to go a little bit off pace here, and it's a team we usually don't talk about, but A.J. Price from South Lake, 6'5". He's a basketball player. I've seen this kid. He can dunk like no one's business on the basketball court, but on the football field, he's got that Randy Moss type ability where he can just go up and get the ball, and he's got a quarterback this year in Scott Reed. Caller, where are you calling from, and what's your name?
I'm calling from Herndon, and my name's Richard.
Richard, what's your question?
Well, I'm just curious why you haven't talked about the dominating win that Westfield had over Robinson this past week, and particularly how they dominated the lines on both sides.
All right, Richard, let's jump into that game then. Richard, thank you for reminding us about that. And, you know, when you think about it, Westfield is a team that did dominate Robinson. Let's just be honest here. Richard makes a great point. Robinson is a team that traditionally has done great in the Northern region. But this year, their inexperience at defensive back, Dave, as you said in the beginning of this season, has really hurt them. What happened? I mean, talk about the line play as well.
Well, John and I were both on the sidelines for that game. Westfield ended up winning that one 38-7. It was 7-7 midway through the second quarter when Westfield exploded for 28 points in about 4.5 minutes, which was insane. But after the game, Coach Verbanek was actually praising his defense more than his offense. They gave up one touchdown on an 80-yard run to Peter Ferrara, who we've been talking about all year, amazing transfer from Langley. But other than that, they really shut down Robinson's running game and just really did an amazing job all around.
One thing about Robinson, I'm not trying to pinpoint anything on one kid, but their quarterback, Timmy Meyer, struggled in certain games this year. It's pretty easy to stack the box and try to stop Alex Murray and try to stop Peter Ferrara. He only had one completion against Westfield. Against West Springfield 2 weeks ago when they again lost that one 21-7. He only had 3 completions, all 3 of them to running backs. Meyer's got to spread the ball out a little bit more, throw to his receivers a little bit more. That's why teams such as Westfield are able to stack the box and just put 8, 9 guys in there and be able to stop the
I'll say one thing before I kick it to Dave, because you guys were both there. They are working with a young receiving core, and so Timmy Meyer has not had the ability to throw to some experienced guys. Last year, when he did have an experienced receiving core, he did put up some good numbers. So you got to wonder if it's more him or if his receivers just haven't been the most experienced guys. Dave, what's up?
I have a silly stat for those of you at home. Westfield is currently 5-0 this season, halfway through the season. In the last 5.5 seasons, Westfield in the regular season, 53-2. They have 2 losses in the last 5.5 seasons during the regular season. It's just unbelievable.
Unheard of. You got to love it. Westfield, Tom Verbanek getting it done. And when you got the kids like Evan Royster and those boys coming through your program, yeah, obviously you're going to put up a couple of wins, and they always seem to reload. 2 Glennons have gone through. He's had a couple of Roysters, one at Fairfax. This guy used to block for the older Royster.
Very well.
So, all right, let's jump back into the Liberty District. I want to thank our callers for the questions, and if you have questions, anything we haven't talked about that you want to hear about, because this show is all about you, fans of the Northern Region, give us a call at 703-573-LIVE. Jumping back into the Liberty District, guys. Stonebridge, you mentioned this. Madison's gunning for Stonebridge. What is it about Stonebridge that really gets Madison fired up?
Well, it's those 4 losses in the last 2 years. Most importantly, 2 losses knocking them out of the playoffs the last 2 years. Madison's a perennial playoff team, but they get knocked out by those pesky Bulldogs.
All right, we're going to get knocked out here by another call. Caller, what's your name and where are you from?
Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I'm calling from Centerville, Virginia.
Okay.
And I'm a little biased because I'm Brian Kennedy's mom. But I want to know, besides Brian, who do you guys think is one of the better players in this area playing both ways?
Okay, so calling from Centerville and likes Brian Kennedy, I think you're in good company. There's a bunch of people in that area that likes Brian Kennedy, who we just featured in some of our highlights. But guys, it's a good question. Who do you think?
Well, obviously, Brian Kennedy. Besides Brian Kennedy, a Defensive Player of the Year last year, lights out running back this year as well. I'm going to go, and this is no surprise to anybody that knows me, I'm going to go with Will Wilson. He is just, I'm sorry, the kid scares me. No,
Will Wilson is a lineman at Langley.
He was a great Division I offensive lineman for the Saxons. They have him also playing a little bit of defensive line, and he makes teams change up what they're doing, running away from him. And obviously, a problem with Langley is Langley has a lot of two-way players. A lot of those linemen go both ways, and they get tired late in the game. But I have to go with Will Wilson.
So we get a call about the best players in the Northern Region. This former lineman goes right back into lineman
the linemen
talk.
never get love.
All right, let's get some love from this next caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you from?
Yeah, this is James from Centerville, too.
Okay. James, what do you got for us?
The lady before took my question, you know what I'm saying? All I wanted to know is, over at Westfield, I be seeing the starting running back, I don't know his name, what's his name, Cabot or something like that?
Yes.
Cabot, yes.
A lot of playing time, and I was just wondering, the second running back, somebody a lot better than me. I don't know his name or anything, but number 2, or whatever I think his number is, he do it a lot better. I don't understand why he doesn't get more carries than the first running back.
Okay, so a good question from James from Centerville wants to know, all right, there's obviously a running back, I don't want to call it a controversy because it's high school, but they're splitting carries. And every time you're splitting carries, people have one opinion of the one guy, and the other guy who doesn't get as many carries is always the most popular guy on campus until he does get the carries, and then it switches back and forth because You're never popular when you're getting the job done unless you're scoring on every touch, okay? When you are splitting time, a la the Cowboys, Marion Barber and Julius Jones, maybe that little bit of tension there. But I don't think those guys have that tension because you played for Coach Tom Verbanek. There's no room for it on that type of team.
Well, the thing is, Stephen Tabbitt is the reason Brian Kennedy breaks these touchdowns. Tabbitt will come and he will knock you on your behind, and if you try to watch out for a juke, he'll just run right through you. And then when Brian Kennedy comes and you're afraid of him running you over, Kennedy's gonna break your ankles. So the reason is you see in the profession. You mentioned the Cowboys. You see it with Liddell Betts and Clinton Portis. A change of pace. You see it with Chantilly. A change of pace is key for these top teams.
All right, let's change the pace here for just a minute and take the call from the next caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you from? Caller, are you there?
Didn't like my answer.
Very well
I'm
done.
sorry.
Very well done. That must have been Stephen
Chantilly
Tabbitt.
fan right
Okay, that's a Chantilly fan right there. If you do have a question for us and not a dial tone, give us a call at 703-573-LIVE. And someone's already broken through the switchboard, which is lit up. Caller, what's your name and where are you from?
Brandon, and I'm from Herndon.
Brandon from Herndon?
Yeah.
Okay, Brandon, what's your question?
I was wondering if you guys think Westfield will go to states and how good they might do next year, considering many of their starting lineups are seniors, and they'll be graduating this year.
Okay, Brandon, go ahead and slow down for us for a minute and say that question one more time for us so we can get all of it.
Oh, I was wondering if you guys think Westfield will go to state this year, and how good do you guys think they're going to be next year, considering that many of their starting lineups are seniors?
Westfield last year, obviously a lot of their kids are seniors because last year they were so young. Think about Westfield. Think about teams like Westfield, teams like Robinson, teams like Oakton, is they are going to reload. The coaching staff is so key when you go from year to year, and I might be a little biased, but Tom Verbanek and his coaching staff definitely have the tools to mold kids. They're building programs here. Teams, like I mentioned, Robinson's building programs, Oakton's building programs, Chantilly, Centerville. They have teams. They have, from their freshman program to their JV program, they're making these kids better. They're making these kids into stars.
As we're going to continue to take your calls here on this live Wednesday, October 3rd episode of the Fairfax Sports Report, let's jump into the National District, where John Marcario has done some excellent work covering the Edison Eagles for the Connection newspapers. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis, Paul Frummelt, John Marcario, and Dave Bushenfeld. John, walk us through the National District standings.
National District Edison, no surprise there, sits atop. They are 1-0 in district play, 4-1 overall. They have a big game against Yorktown, who sits second in district play. Yorktown is 2-0, 3-2 overall. Between Edison and Yorktown, both those teams have won the last 7 National District regular season titles. Then you see Mount Vernon, they are third, 1-1 in district play, 2-3 overall. Then they are followed by Wakefield, Washington and Lee, Stewart, and Falls Church. You can forget about every other team. It's Edison and Yorktown.
Oh,
and that's just that.
I'm sure our callers will love to forget about every other team.
Please jump on him.
Edison and Yorktown will play this week in what will be the National District title game, really. All right, we got a caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you from?
Yeah, this is Mike from Springfield. Just wondering how you break down the West Springfield, West Potomac game coming up this week.
All right, Mike, thanks for calling in from West Springfield. Okay, so obviously West Springfield and West Potomac, if you can read more about the breakdown on West Springfield and West Potomac's game at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. But guys, let's run through the gamut here and make a couple picks. Dave, who you picking and why?
Well, in our pick'em, I have West Springfield, but it's all going to come down to their defense. If they give up 41 points again, I don't know if they'll be able to hang with West Potomac, but if they play like they had been before that game, they should be all right.
In the pick'em, I have West Potomac. My heart screams West Springfield because I think they've done a great job with their defensive turnaround. I think they're going to be able to put up a lot of points in that game. It's just West Potomac is so good, and the Wolverines are playing at home. Small edge right there.
Paul.
West Springfield's just inconsistent. West Potomac is the model of consistency. I'm taking West Potomac.
West Potomac by a mile. As you see our picks there, Dave Bushenfeld has nothing to say this week, as he's just one game up of myself, BJ there at 6-6, and Paul Frummelt goes 3-0 to come back from a ridiculous start where he had only 3 wins, and there he is with this little puny 4-8 record. John Marcario bringing up the rear.
I'm mailing it in.
And you see our picks this week: West Springfield at West Potomac. Looks like Dave's going with the Spartans. I'm taking Edison, guys, as we all are across the board, and Herndon against Fairfax. I think most people are going to take Herndon, but don't be surprised if Fairfax breaks through and gets a Concord
Peter Miller
District
could
win.
definitely have a huge game.
All right, let's show the folks at home. I'm going to backtrack here for just a minute. And remember, you want to ask us something, give us a buzz here at 703-573-LIVE. Well, let's show the folks at home who is the Fairfax Sports Network's Athlete of the Week. The Athlete of the Week is something we do every week here at the Fairfax Sports Network. It can also be found online at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. This week, John Marcario, you got a chance to watch Ben Barber be the man on campus against Wakefield. What'd he do?
Mr. All-Purpose Ben Barber, Edison's do-all quarterback, running back, wide receiver, defensive player. Against Wakefield, Barber led the Eagles in passing. He was 7 of 11 for 131 yards, led them in rushing, 9 carries for 123 yards. Oh, by the way, led them in receiving, a 70-yard touchdown pass. He still has scholarship offers from the University of Maryland, University of Virginia, and Virginia Tech. He should be making a decision sometime before the end of the season. Ben Barber is legitimately one of, if not the best player in the region.
All right, one of, if not the best players in the northern region. There's a couple people from the Centerville area. Michelle calling in today to tell us who's the best player in Centerville. Most people would say possibly Mikey Glennon, but Brian Kennedy making a case for himself over there. She asked us who's the other better players. Paul went with a lineman.
I have
Will
an
Wilson.
extra choice that just came to my mind, and I can't believe I forgot this. Daryl Hamilton over at Centerville. The Centerville defense has allowed 3 points in the last 4 games. You have to give a shout out to Daryl Hamilton leading that defense and such a threat on offense.
Do you pick offensive players any chance? Is it all defense?
There's both ways. You got to give love to both two-way players.
They haven't been using Hamilton as much offensively as I thought they were going to coming into the season, but he still is the best defensive player.
I think you guys are all missing who actually is the best player in the northern region, and it's Jimmy Bennett from West Potomac. This kid is legitimately 6'9". He's got offers from all the top 20 schools in the northern region, and he has been a call-in guest on this show.
Love to the big boys.
Speaking of call-in guests, let's take the next big call from our next big caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello?
Yeah, caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, Jack from Alexandria.
Okay, Jack, what's your question?
Hi, I'm a dad of a player that played several years ago, and I just wanted to make the coaches aware that they ask for volunteers, and for 4 or 5 years I filmed and other dads out there pulling chains and all, and I tell you, carrying that stuff up to the top of the thing and filming and getting the down markers where they want it and all. I enjoyed it and all, but never at the end of the season, nobody walked over and said, "Hey, thanks for doing the job" and all. I just would like to make you all aware, and maybe they could spread the word around it, that the dads that go out there and volunteer and do these different things, have the coaches or somebody on the team just take some names down for people doing that. 4 years I did that, and I didn't even have one person come up to me at the end of the 4 years and say, "Hey, thanks so-and-so for." It hurt, and knowing what I know now, I would never do it again. But I just wanted to make you aware of that. Maybe enough people would hear this on the show that would make a change to that.
Okay, Jack, thanks so much for calling in, and you make a good point. And guys, when you think about Jack's comment, it rings true for a lot of different people that do work around the game, outside of the sidelines. It's all about the kids in the middle of the field, but Jack makes a good point. There's guys filming, there's guys carrying the chains, there's kids out there as ball kids, as ball boys. There's also parents that are in the concession stand. There's a lot of people outside of the game that are just looking to help out, and sometimes a thank you would be nice. All right, we're going to thank all the teams that have jumped into our top 10, and we're thanking them for continuing to win to make our job easy. Let's show the folks at home exactly who sits where in the Fairfax Sports Network's top 10. Every week, we bring you our adjusted top 10 based on what happened the previous week. And we're all voters here on the Fairfax Sports Network. Go to our website, click on this poll, and leave your comments as to who should be listed where. We'll play the best comment on this show every week. Dave Bushenfeld, it's no surprise that Westfield and Chantilly are right at the top.
Well, if anybody is surprised, and they obviously haven't been watching football so far this year, Westfield and Chantilly, far and away, in my opinion, the two best teams in the region. Westfield's still unanimous number 1 up there for us.
Two best teams in the Concord at 1 and 2. The two best teams in the Liberty and the Patriot, West Potomac and West Springfield there in the Patriot at number 3 and 5. Madison and Stonebridge, two best teams in the Liberty, at 4 and 6.
Edison sits at 7 again, that good big game against Yorktown this week. Then you have Centerville, who plays Robinson. Then at 9th place, you have Lake Braddock, who has a tricky game against Lee, who is 0-5. Do not be disguised by that 0-5 record. They could be the best undefeated or winless team in the entire region.
Something to note, I don't think Robinson, in my years of doing this, has ever been at the 10th spot. I've never seen Robinson lower than maybe a 6. And that's telling as to how much they were hurt by graduation. And something else to note, Oakton isn't even in the top 10. This is a team that won the state championship 2 years ago in 2005. And in my years of doing this as well, I've never seen Oakton fall out of the top 10. So it shows you there is a parity in this league no matter what anyone tells you about the winners always winning and the losers always losing. If you told me at the beginning of this year that Centerville would be in the top 10 right now, I'd tell you were crazy. and they've really shown something this year. That's not a knock on the Wildcats. They've been incredible this year. Their defense is one of the top defenses in the northern region when you look at the Wildcats. But right now, we don't want to look at the Wildcats. We don't want to look at anybody in the northern region, Paul. We just want to look at Paul Frummel. Tell us about that little Loudoun County next door to us that we all love. Every week, Paul shows them a little love in the Loudoun Report.
All right, guys, well, great, really, really fantastic football is being played in the Dulles District this year, and I'll give you my top 3 straight away. Broad Run at number 1. They had a huge win over Briar Woods to retain the number 1 spot. Always a top team, Broad Run. Parkview, the reigning champs, stay at number 2. Briar Woods is still at number 3. There's no change to my top 3. These are the 3 best teams. This is where they should be. In standings, you see Broad Run's right there in the top of the standings with Parkview right behind them. Both those teams are undefeated. Now, again, the scoreboard, Dominion beat Freedom. Heritage beat Potomac Falls. Parkview won again, beating Loudoun County, and Broad Run beat Briar Woods, as I mentioned before. A quick note in something that's not football, in volleyball. Now, Loudoun County, we talk about the Concord District, but Loudoun County is owning the Concord District in volleyball. Earlier in the year, Loudoun County High School beat our number 1 ranked team, Westfield. And last week, Stonebridge beat Chantilly, and Loudoun Valley beat Centerville. Loudoun County is where the best volleyball is being played right now. You heard it here. The best volleyball is being played in Loudoun County in the Loudoun Report. And Briar Woods, we talk about Briar Woods a lot, a third-year school doing some big things. The Briar Woods golf team won the school's first ever Region 2 championship. Last year, they won the school's first ever Dulles District championship. So the Briar Woods golf team is really making a name for themselves in Region 2 and the Dulles District.
Golf, football, volleyball, all of it in Paul's Loudoun Report, and you can find that Loudoun Report at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com, as you can also find something we do every week here, Marcario's Madness. John, what's driving you mad this week?
The atmosphere at high school football games should be unique. It's Friday night, the lights are out, class is out for the weekend. It should be a special occasion. Instead, many fans and students seem more interested in walking and mingling about than actually paying attention to the games. Schools would be better served to try to get these students more interested in the game. Have music playing from either the band or through the loudspeaker before and after, not during, big plays. At halftime, try to have student giveaways. Some schools have generic giveaways for the fans, but have stuff designated for the students specifically. Also at halftimes, try specific areas for the students to go to get discounted prices on meals or merchandise to get them more school spirits. Also, try to do stuff more similar to Westfield's Blackout Night. It looked awesome on TV, it got the students riled up, and it worked for several sports, as it wasn't just football games that were blacked out, it was also volleyball and field hockey games that night. Let's be honest here. There are a number of kids that go to high school football games. That's half the battle. Now it's the school's responsibility to try their best to just get them to cheer a little bit more for their teams in action.
All right, and for once, this is probably a first here on the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm going to agree with John Marcario. I can't even explain myself. I think you made a strong case. I think you're right. I don't know whose responsibility it is to do those things, but it would be nice to see some of the involvement be more focused around the game than it is about being a kid on a Friday night. But I'm not far removed from that, so I know what it's like to go see your friends and hang out a little bit. One thing I will say, Paul, I was at a soccer game the other day, and this team is getting blown out. I'm not going to go into a long story here. I'm just going to, 10 seconds. Team's getting blown out. Their cheerleaders have their back to the field, and they're saying cheers like, we're going to rock you. And I'm sitting here looking at it, I'm like, are you serious? You're getting blown out like 6-0. And you're talking about you're going to rock the other team. Have a little court awareness, if you will. All right, we've got a little awareness here on this show, and it's only because we have a website to go to every week to read all these crazy good stories. We're on the web, fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. You can find news, notes, highlights for all the sports in the Northern Region. Northern Region golf is played today, and by the end of the night, we're going to have results up as to who is leading, who's on the leaderboard in the Northern Region Golf Tournament, and my guess is Jake Ann of Chantilly.
Definitely. My boy.
Good. FSN Game of the Week. This week on Cox On Demand, Langley at Madison. The Fairfax Sports Network will be there, as they were on September 21st when they taped Chantilly at Westfield. And of course, Wynn Ellington and Greg Wyshynski on the call on Channel 10. Catch that this week on Channel 10. Thanks to CCI Screen Printing. That's one of our teammates at 703-978-0257. CCI Screen Printing for all your screen printing needs. And guys, an excellent live show here tonight. We're still live. Can we take one more call? No, we can't. My producers are saying no more live calls. So sorry, guys. We're going to have to leave you hanging. But if you want to put those comments on our website, go click on our stories and leave your comments. We'll play it next week here on the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, BJ Kubaroulis. This is Paul Frummel, John Marcario. Both these guys are the Connection newspapers. Read their stories. And of course, we already know you're reading Dave Buchenfeld's stories at the Times papers. He's the sports editor there. 2 games of the week this week. Langley and Madison, and Chantilly and Oakton. Quick, guys, quick picks. 10 seconds.
Chantilly.
Happy birthday, Craig Starbutzel.
Oakton.
Langley. Madison. Just kidding. Sorry, Sophia.